Welcome to 5 Plagiarism Indicators. My name's Thomas Lancaster from thomaslancaster.co.uk, and I've put together this short tutorial to show you some methods you can use to detect if there's plagiarism in work that you're marking. Here's an overview of the entire presentation, which is being run using the Prezi system. You can see that I've got multiple areas to cover when you're looking for plagiarism. The first thing you should be doing, of course, is using text matching tools, of which the best known is Turnitin.com. That's a really useful service for identifying non-original work, which will tell you which pieces of work to look at further, because all Turnitin will do is tell you pieces of work that are unoriginal and require further investigation by a human. It won't tell you for sure if this is plagiarism, and it will never get you 100% of all potential plagiarism cases, because Turnitin uses a very limited database. It's a very well established database, and it's the best database out there, but it can't possibly include within it every website or every book which your students might use to cheat from. In addition, if they're getting outside help, for instance through contract cheating, that is, they're paying other people to produce work for them, then Turnitin is not going to pick that up because that's original work. So the very best thing you can do is be vigilant when marking and look out for indicators which suggest that the work that you're seeing is not the student's own. And that's where these 5 tips come in. So first of all, what's the very first indicator? It's if the writing quality is well above what you'd normally expect from the student you're marking, or even from the cohort of students. Now, it does help if you're familiar with that student's writing style, because you'll see immediately if something's amiss. But even so, if you're not, there are indications, for instance, in the type of language, the level of grammar, the sophistication of the wording, all give you an indication that someone else might have been involved in writing that piece of work. Particularly if you're looking at international students' work and the language is very good, then that might be something you want to investigate further and to track down the source of some of those ideas. Indicator number 2 is to look at the references and see how up to date they are. You'd expect in most pieces of work that people would migrate immediately towards the most recent references in the field. If you're marking some work and it's clearly the case that references are 5 years old, or even worse 10 years old, then chances are this has been pulled from a much earlier source where these references were the latest thing. Make sure you check and you see if the references are up to date. The third indicator is to look for references within the text that the student is located away from your own area. These can be quite revealing. One of the main ones that I've seen is, for instance, with UK writers who suddenly mention locations that are nowhere near them. They may be in the US, they may be in other countries around the world. You can get a similar level of indication too from the spellings. If you're in the US, you'd expect to see US spellings. If you're in the UK, you'd expect to see UK spellings. If this isn't the case, then chances are the student may well have cribbed this from another source. Indicator number 4 is one of the most obvious ones when students using copy and paste, and that's when the font typeface changes suddenly within text. And you can imagine when something is just copied and pasted from the internet into a document and suddenly something about that text changes. It may be a slightly different size, it may be a slightly different font, it may even be something as trivial as the line spacing. That distance between the lines differs slightly. Watch out for those when you're marking, because areas which are presented like that, and often when a student has panicked and completed work at the last minute or has plagiarized for reasons due to shortness of time, they don't notice enough to change that, then those different fonts can be another good plagiarism indicator. The final indicator that I suggest you look at is when the writing style changes within a piece of work. Let's say it starts off really good, then it becomes really choppy for a period, then it becomes really good again. Then perhaps you're looking at the choppy part of that being the bit that the student wrote for themselves, and then the various well-written, good academic English areas are the bits that were taken from other sources. So look out for that language difference, and then it will give you an idea which sections are worthy of further investigation. What do you do when you do have those sections from the indicators? My recommendation would be to use these as the basis of a Google search, because Google is a very powerful search engine and will still find a lot of sources where this is publicly available. You may often get other indicators as well that gives you an idea where some of these items have come from, which may point you towards textbooks, academic papers which don't have a free view available in Google, or even forums that are hidden behind private databases. Beyond that, you should be thinking about your assignment design to remove the potential for student plagiarism, because as academics we need to be doing what we can to discourage plagiarism and to show that we're putting the same amount of effort in to design that out as we're expecting the students to do when working for themselves. So make sure you consider doing some of the good practice elements which are well documented in academic literature, such as always using a fresh assignment brief every year and trying to incorporate local examples. Thanks for joining me for this training video, and you can find out more about me, Thomas Lancaster, at my website and blog, which is available at thomaslancaster.co.uk. Good luck in your continued academic future and your attempts to remove plagiarism from the academic curriculum.